totally didn't record this before, and my microphone was not being picked up, so here we are. Round 2. Twitch emotes. There's a lot of ways you can go about getting some for your own channel. Some people find a pack of emotes on Etsy, while others make their own. But have you ever wanted to know what goes on behind the scenes when they're commissioned by an artist? Hey there, my name's Wren. I'm a streamer on Twitch as well as a digital artist, and today I'll be showing you a behind the scenes look of how I made these adorable emotes I created for my good friend Jaded Hydra, and how I became his official Twitch emote artist. To give you some background information, Jaded had been talking about wanting some emotes for quite some time. Before he commissioned me, he already had some emotes for his channel, and one of them just so happened to be a PNG of a Terry's Chocolate Orange. Now, I've heard of Terry's Chocolate Oranges before, but I'd, at this point, never had one myself since I don't ever recall finding one here in America, despite knowing that they're around here somewhere. From what I know, they're popular around Christmas time, but they can still be found year-round at major retailers. When I met Jaded earlier this year, I noticed just how popular this Terry's Chocolate Orange emote was, not only in his channel, but across other mutual streamers' chats as well. Come to find out, this emote is so popular within several communities, it got to the point where he loved to gigantify this emote on a regular basis in my chat whenever I would stream. This happened so much that curiosity got the best of me. I caved, I ordered one of these chocolate oranges on stream, and the next day it arrived and my community witnessed me have a whole life-changing experience over it. Let me tell you, this chocolate is so good. When I got it, it was only $6, but unfortunately, due to everything going on right now, it's a whopping $14. But let me tell you, it takes everything in me not to order another one. So fast forward a little bit, I'm sitting in Jaded's chat during one of his streams. He starts talking about how he wants a little mascot for his channel. Not only does he want a mascot, he wants nothing other than a mascot based off of a Terry's Chocolate Orange. And upon hearing this, inspiration struck in an instant, and I knew that I had to jump on board to work with him on this project. So I asked him if he'd be willing to commission me, and that's how we ended up with the lovely little emotes he has today. Now that we have some background regarding how we got to this point, let's talk about the process of how I started creating these emotes. As mentioned before, when I heard that he wanted a Terry's Chocolate Orange mascot, it was like inspiration struck, and I knew what I wanted to do immediately if he allowed me to make these emotes. Both of us met the same day I offered to work with him, and during this Discord call we had, I told him what my initial idea was. Hear me out. What if this chocolate orange character was drawn in a 1930s cartoon / Cuphead style?
Well, that's a great idea, innit? Pop goes the weasel, Bob's your uncle.
So we got around to throwing together a mood board where we took inspiration from not only 1930s styled media like Cuphead, but also a little bit from SpongeBob. Now, Jaded was very excited to see this little guy come to life, who, obviously, had to be named Terry. That being said, he had quite a few emotes he wanted me to make. Happy, sad, angry, shocked, one of him holding a heart, a rip one, and a twerking one I happened to pitch to him that he loved. Within the list of emotes he wanted me to create, he also wanted me to create a raid emote, where Terry is holding a sword and shield, so this is why this is on the mood board as well. After brainstorming for about an hour and having a really good idea as to what Terry was going to look like, we both departed from the call, and I was left with a total of 8 emotes to create. I'd never created an emote for anybody, let alone 8 of them, so I was really nervous going into this. I worried that I'd not be able to bring this character to life in a way that Jaded was happy and satisfied with. I'd never even drawn anything in the 1930s cartoon style that I was now expected to pull off, and I knew that this project would take a while, which meant the style could change over the course of me working on it. Because of that, I knew the best way to address this obstacle was to create a character turnaround for Terry. I explained what character turnarounds are in my video about tips on how to start your own webtoon, but if you're new here and you don't know what a turnaround is, it is a full 360 visual reference of your character from head to toe that shows the design of your character. It allows you to stay consistent with not only the style your character is drawn in, but it also helps you keep track of all the details of the design of your character so it remains accurate. Because Terry's based off of a Terry's Chocolate Orange, thankfully for me this was quite an easy process, not only because he's mostly just a box, but also because I'd already drawn some concept art while working on the mood board with Jaded during our call. The process of creating this turnaround went fairly quickly due to Terry's simple design, and while I didn't happen to record the process of making that turnaround, I'm happy to say that this is the fully finished product and official turnaround of Terry the Chocolate Orange. Look at him. Isn't he cute? Not only am I extremely pleased with how he turned out, but upon showing Jaded, I was relieved to know that he was ecstatic and even more excited to see how these emotes were going to turn out. Now that we had our character turnaround for Terry, the next part was to begin creating the emotes. As you know, I use Clip Studio Paint for all of my art, and I never thought I'd feel this way about anything. I'm on the floor, in a hoodie I haven't taken off in 4 days, covered in peanut butter toast crumbs, and emotional damage from not being able to draw anatomy on my own. Every time I think about you, my beloved Clip Studio, my brain starts buzzing like a nest of overly caffeinated bees slamming into a subwoofer at full blast at a Youngblood concert. The G-Pen, liquid gold, the vector layers, my vacation away from a miserable 9 to 5. Your 3D models, God, don't get me started. They're all I've ever wanted and more. All of it, for a single payment of $60. You treat us artists so well, and you continue to give, and give, and give. Even when you're at your lowest of 20. You're the light at the end of the dark tunnel of terrible hand drawings and accidentally dipping paintbrushes into your morning coffee. I would tattoo your logo right onto my forehead. When people ask about it, I'll just say, you just wouldn't get it. But I'll tell them anyway about how awesome you are. I would name my firstborn Brush Stabilization. And I'll preach to the art choir so loud that Adobe will hear me and weep in their overpriced capitalistic subscriptions that no one can afford! I want to serve! I want to wake up every morning and say, yes, my lord! I will convert another downer to the light of Clip Studio Paint today! I love you, Clip Studio Paint! Please sponsor me! Forever and rapidly yours, Wren. As you know, I use Clip Studio Paint for all of my art, which I'm totally normal about, and this wasn't an exception. While making my canvas, I made sure to do some research on the max dimensions of Twitch emotes. As per the Twitch website, static emotes can be anywhere from 28 by 28 pixels to 112 by 112 pixels in a PNG file format, whereas animated emotes can be anywhere from 112 by 112 pixels to 4096 by 4096 pixels in a GIF format, limited to 60 frames. That being said, the file size cannot be larger than 1 megabyte, so try to keep that in mind. Despite the recommended dimensions for static Twitch emotes, there seem to be a lot of people who go well above beyond that, and it seems to work perfectly fine as long as the canvas remains perfectly square. For example, I made my canvas 1000 by 1000 pixels with a resolution, or DPI, of 300 to ensure that the emotes were able to appear clear and crisp. I also wanted to make sure that these images could be used for other things outside of the emotes, so that's another reason why I chose such a big canvas size. Now here comes the fun part. Actually starting the emotes. Using the character turnaround I created, I first started off with the simplest one, the happy emote. During most of the process, I did use a symmetry ruler tool as I worked so it would be faster and to keep everything looking as clean as possible. I first sketched out the emote where I basically copied the expression from the character turnaround and altered it after everything was in place. As mentioned before, since I've never actually really worked on that sort of 1930s Cuphead style, I had to use a lot of references from Google and Pinterest for this project, but doing that helped so much. After the face was finished, I went in to add the details to the rest of the box and moved on to his legs and his arms. Now, I will say, his limbs were probably the hardest part about this whole thing, because I could have easily made them too long, too short, too thick, too narrow, and because of that, you'll see later on that I chose to not do full body emotes for that reason. but also because these emotes would end up looking way too small in the end, and that was something I wanted to avoid as much as possible. Once I was finished with the sketch, I went on to line it with a vector layer. I also used the rectangle, eclipse, and curve tools a lot through this process as well, and that helped speed the process up a little bit. Once the lining was complete, I used a raster layer beneath the vector layer to color in everything using the fill tool that was able to reference all the layers within the file. This specific tool is something that I use a lot, especially when it comes to more complicated projects such as my comic. I also went back into the vector layer and colored all the black portions manually, so there was no way that any of these colors could seep into the arms, the legs, the mouth, the eyes, and any other area that was supposed to be black. Of course, I could have gone in and colored all the black sections like I did with all the other colors, but for whatever reason, I just learned to do it this way after all the other projects I work on that have black in them. Honestly, I just find it a lot easier. The next one was the heart emote, and this is where I really decided that full body emotes weren't the way to go due to sizing. The process here was basically the same as the happy emote: sketch it out, line it once it's in a good position, and color it. The only thing that's different with this project is that I didn't render most of the emotes because I wanted it to come off as sort of bright and simplistic, just like Cuphead does. You can see for the next emote, I went on to try and work on the raid emote, but I got a little frustrated with the sketch, so I decided to come back to it and move on to the rip emote. Since Jaded plays a lot of Phasmophobia, I really wanted to create some sort of specter or ghost version of Terry, but in the end I wasn't happy with that either. I think this was a few days after initially starting the emotes, and this specific day was just not it for me in terms of creating art, so I don't think I did a lot. I believe this is also around the time my health issues started popping up, so I was also dealing with that, which I'm thankful to say that Jaded was extremely understanding and was really patient through this whole process. You can see here that I gave up on the whole ghost idea and went for a more gravestone idea, but while doing that, I got the idea of having Terry be unwrapped and have somebody sacrilegiously take a bite out of him. Because Terry's passed on in this emote, I also wanted to make his leaves look a little bit wilted just to add to that whole rip aspect of it. After I was finished with the rip emote, I finally went back to the raid emote, which honestly is one of the ones I'm most proud of. You can see that I copied the face from the character turnaround and slapped it onto a cube, just so I could use it for perspective reference, because I suck at perspective. From there, I drew the sword, used yet another reference for his hand, drew the shield, and all the other details. Now, this one I did render a little bit just so I wouldn't feel as flat, and honestly I think it helped give it a little bit more life. The next emote I chose to do was actually an extra one, since I wasn't completely satisfied with the happy one. This emote has two official versions because I thought the sketch gave some cursed Studio Ghibli vibes. I loved it. I showed it to Jaded, and it turned out he loved it and thought it was hilarious, so we decided to keep it. After the sketch was finished, I of course went on to line it in a vector layer, color it, and finish it up. The next emote was also an extra one I chose to do to surprise Jaded, mostly because I felt bad that I'd been taking a little bit of time away from making emotes since I was going through my health issues. I couldn't help but imagine Terry doing the Newt Newt meme, so that's what I decided to create here. This emote ended up becoming the first animated emote, and for that, I shrunk Terry down a little bit through the finished emote in DaVinci and created a slow zoom in for him and exported it as a GIF. Now the next emote I chose to work on was the twerking emote, and I'll admit, this isn't my best work. I knew I wanted this emote to be animated, but I've never animated a day in my life, so this was a real struggle for me. However, I did take a storyboarding class in university, so that knowledge sort of helped me out a little bit, but this emote was kind of tricky because I had a few ideas of how I could make it look, but I either wasn't able to execute it properly, or the drawing that I would try and make was a little bit too risque for my liking, so I ended up just drawing him from the side. Additionally, this emote did come out pretty small due to that full body aspect of it, so maybe later on down the line I'll redo it if I, figure out how to actually animate properly. The next emote I created was the shocked emote. This one was really fun because of the perspective of it, but also because of the rendering I did on it, and I actually ended up making two versions of this to show Jaded, and both of us agreed that one of them with the smaller pupils looked a little bit more expressive, so I went ahead and stuck to that one. The angry emote was up next, and this one was another one that I struggled with, just because Terry by default is supposed to be a happy character. I ended up creating a few different types of expressions for Jaded to pick from since I couldn't choose, but after picking one that he was happy with, I went ahead and sketched out the rest of the emote and finished it up like the rest. The next and last one to do on the list was the sad emote. This wasn't as difficult to do as the angry one, but it proved to be a struggle because there weren't a lot of references out there for sad expressions from Cuphead or even 1930s cartoons. Nonetheless, I really do like how the finished version of this one came out. Now, because Jaded was so patient when it came to waiting for these emotes, I decided to gift him not one, not two, but 3 more emotes. 2 of these emotes are relatively the same with some small differences, but one of them I deemed as like a dazed emote, and the other was like more of like a hypnotized emote. The third one was similar to the sad emote, but instead I made it more of a happy crying emote. I had a lot of fun working on these 3 emotes, though I will say the hardest part about the dazed and hypnotized emotes were the eyes, since they weren't solid circles like the rest of them. I first tried to use a G-pen I used for sketching and lining, but I wasn't able to stay consistent with the space between each black line, so I tried to use a vector layer and the Bezier curve tool to draw the swirls, then move each of their control points, as that's one of the differences between raster and vector layers. I ended up getting really annoyed with that method as well, so I ended up just using really short strokes to draw the eyes with the G-pen. As you can see, I sketched all of these emotes and went in to line and color them later. I did that because the sketching process, personally, takes a little bit longer than anything else, and at this point, I was actually just really tired of sketching, so I just wanted to get it over with. With everything ready, I was happy to say that this batch of 14 emotes was officially completed. Not only that, but when Jaded saw them, he was so happy with them that he decided to make me his official Twitch emote artist. So that's how I created some Switch emotes for a streamer and became an emote artist. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe. If you want to check out Jaded's Twitch, I'll put his channel down below, as well as a link for you to check out if you're interested in Clip Studio Paint. Before this video ends, I just want to give a huge shout out to Jaded and thank him so much for trusting me enough to work on these for him. I've been struggling with my art recently, and I think this project helped me feel just a little bit more confident in the work that I do. I also want to thank him for being so patient with me during this process. Normally, I don't think something like this would have taken as long as it did, but with so much going on in my life right now, I found myself having to take longer breaks and rest just to make sure I wasn't overworking myself. After this experience, I thought about making emotes and other Twitch assets to sell on Etsy, but I don't really know what specifically I would make. So if you have any ideas, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Also, if you have any other video ideas that you'd like to see, feel free to let me know down below as well. Anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing time zone, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!